Hi everybody, today let's take a look at a book called Meddling Kids, a novel by Edgar Cantero. Here's a good look at the cover, which if you want to tell a good book by its cover, this would be it. Briefly, I don't want to give too much away about the plot, and I don't want to spoil it for people that want to read it. But the basic gist of the story, it's kind of based on Scooby-Doo. This group of teenagers solve a crime like Scooby-Doo, and the crime is committed by a guy in a suit. In a costume. And then they unmask him, and he says, "I would have gotten away with it if it hadn't been for you meddling kids and your dog." But these are not the Scooby-Doo characters. They're similar to him. The dog, Tim, or in the beginning, it's a dog named Sean, and Tim. I'll get into Tim later, but he's not a Great Dane. He's a Weimaraner, and they solve the crime, and in fact, in the book, they have a picture of the newspaper article with the teen sleuths unmasking a sleepy leg monster. There's Sean the dog, dude in suit, in a kind of like a sea monster suit, and then these are the meddling kids, the local copper, and their pal Captain Al, who's a retired Air Force veteran. But anyway, okay, they solve the crime. Flash forward maybe about 13, 14, 15 years later, and their lives are kind of in a mess. One of them is a Hollywood actor, becomes a Hollywood actor, and commits suicide. And that's kind of like an homage to Stephen King's It. Stanley committed suicide, in between the time of the original incident and then the further adventures, if you will. Okay, and then there's a girl named Carrie, who's a redhead, a la Daphne. Andy, she's kind of like Velma, I guess. Although Carrie is she's got a doctorate in biology, and then Andy is kind of she wanders around and does things. And then there's Nate, who's he was in and out of mental institutions, and that's because during the original adventure, prior to the setting of the actual story, Nate read part of the Necronomicon that was in an attic in the haunted house they were in, not realizing what it was, and he kind of set forward the events where the three remaining sleuths and a new dog named Tim, who's the great-great-grandson of Sean, have to go back to the haunted house and solve the crime their way. This is one of the best books I've read, and I got it. It said Meddling Kids. I was intrigued by the title, and I kind of read the back a little bit, and then I found out, as I mentioned before, the Necronomicon was a part of the book, and I should have known by the tentacles on the cover, the purple tentacles, by the way, that this would be a Cthulhu mythos book, and it was, and it treated the here's the back of the book. It treated both genres, the Scooby-Doo genre and the Cthulhu genre, with respect. In fact, there were one or two homages. I mentioned the Stephen King It homage. There's also an homage to the X-Files, where a redhead does an autopsy on an alien creature. That was pretty cool. And then one of the other homages to Scooby-Doo was there was a river named the Zoinks River. Actually, it's spelled Zoinx, the Zoinks River. Shaggy in the original Scooby-Doo would always say Zoinks. And a couple of things I liked about the book was sometimes the dialogue would go into like a play format. with like dialogue from a play, and it kind of I think it kind of moved the story along. Another thing I liked was they gave the motivation for the dog, Tim. They'd say they'd have him. They'd have his rationale for doing something like barking, looking knowingly at them, etc. I don't really want to spoil it, but they did give the dog a good human character. In a way, it's hard to describe, but he was very. Tim was very. He was interesting. It was one of the way that the author wrote Tim was probably one of the favorite things of mine in the book. I also liked the play aspect I mentioned before. There was a lot of alliteration, and it was subtle. I kind of would read a sense of, oh yeah, that's good use of alliteration. The plot was tight. There was not a lot of, sometimes novels like this can. Sometimes a novel like this can kind of drag in some spots, and there were one or two anticlimaxes, but it was pretty good. This is not a book for young adult readers. There's a lot of use of the F word. There's a lesbian theme, as well as a human or as a female hygiene item that kind of comes into play. Once again, I highly recommend this book. I'll give it an A, just a good strong A, and recommend it fully. Have you read this book? Have you been a meddling kid? If you like this video or you like the book, give me a hearty thumbs up. Subscribe it. I think we're up to like about 47 subscribers now, so we're going to take over the world. And if you don't like the video or the book, shut up. Thanks for watching. Bye now.